All right, this is the post-processing part of the multiplicity challenge. Hopefully you've watched the first video and you've taken your pictures because you've decided to take the challenge and you're ready to start processing. We'll start in Lightroom. Here are the 5 images. Two things I do in Lightroom. First is to select all of the images. The photo menu and develop settings, match total exposures. In this case, it's probably not necessary since we were lighting it. We were indoors. There's nothing about the lighting to change. It's an outdoor picture. You may have some differences in lighting if you match those exposures across the frames. It'll give you a more consistent base to work with. The other thing I would do is in the develop module, enable the lens profile corrections. Since this is at 18mm, there's probably some distortion that we need to take care of, and take care of them in all the frames at once. So we've got the 5 frames. We're going to take them to Photoshop, select the frames, edit in, open as layers in Photoshop. This will make a single Photoshop document with all of those pictures in as layers. So instead of having to open them individually and move them in, it'll come in as layers and you're ready to start working a little more easily. You can see me moving around the table as the layers get imported. The next step, it's always a handy thing to do when you're working with multiple layers of the same image. There's different versions of essentially the same image, whether it's a topaz impression effect that you've added in, or you're merging a light, an HDR image with a base image. If you take those all selected, auto align layers, and have Photoshop do its magic to line those layers up. It'll be a lot easier to get your layers lined up and ready to go, so you don't have any interesting little artifacts when you start blending the layers. That top layer, as you can see, as my dogs go nuts, is the base layer that I took as an image to make sure that my exposure was right. That's the one that we're going to put at the bottom. We'll blend down to that image one at a time. The process is relatively straightforward and consistent. Pick the layer you want to blend. Alt or Option, I think in Mac, put a layer mask on and hides the layer. You paint in white to reveal the layer. Grab the brush. This first one's pretty easy. It's nowhere near anything else. So we can take a big brush and brush the first version of me in. Each time you do that, if you zoom in and make sure that you got all the edges, you don't have any translucent pieces of you where you're showing through to the background. The other piece that we have in this one is the dogs came and got their bone halfway through, so there you go. Next step for me is to blend or merge down and merge those layers down. You don't have to do that. You can continue to keep all the layers up, but then I can't keep track of which layer I'm working on and which one I'm not, and whether I need to be painting in black or painting in white. So I usually merge them down each time I go. Same process, grab the next one, apply the layer mask with the Alt or Option E, and then mash the layer mask button. Here, because one picture I'm in this chair and one picture I'm in this chair, we have to be a little more circumspect when we paint this one in. I'll show you what I mean here in a minute. We'll use a little bit smaller brush. Let's get in a little bit closer and look at this little edge right there. We're going to paint in black to hide the mask, to hide the image, right along this edge, because there's another one that's going to be close, and I want that edge to be a little finer than we were worried about on the first image and in this one. Again, before you leave it, make sure you're not translucent. Make sure we got all of me in. There's a Control E or Option E to collapse them. We'll talk about this layer in a minute. I want to move this one down. There I am again. Same drill. Layer mask in, paint in white. We'll start out with a big brush on this side because this side's easy. There, I'm all in on that side. Remember, we've got this little edge over here that we're a little more concerned about to make sure that we're close. Zoom in here. Really close to that edge. Excuse me. So we'll make a little bit smaller brush. Ooh, easy. A little bit smaller brush. So we get that edge in right up to that chair back. We're a little close in there. It's not quite an overlap, except maybe just a little bit here in a second. We make it really small. Looks like some of the sleeve of the t-shirt kind of overlapped that chair. Back again. And there we are. Perfect. Well, not perfect. We'll do some with the shadows here. We could spend some time doing things with the shadows, either go with the blank wall, put the shadows in, take the shadows out. This is just a relatively quick way of going through this, but here's the last piece. I took this picture not as a cautionary tale of things moving in a multiplicity shot or a multi-frame shot, but it turned out that way. Let's zoom in. You see how this chair crosses my hand here when the chair's moved in, but when I'm sitting in the chair and the chair's moved out, it moves backwards. So what we've run into is it's going to be impossible to get a clean version of my hand and the chair in there. Let me reduce the opacity of that layer so that you can see. So we've got a whole bunch of stuff going on here, and I didn't think it out well, and so in the grand scheme of government, if at first you don't succeed, redefine success. It's a multiplicity shot of 3 people, not 4. There we go. There's the base layer. There's everything put together. Now all we have to do is save the image, close it, go back to Lightroom. There's our image. You can crop it, change exposure, do whatever, and you're working on the whole image instead of one image at a time, which makes it a lot more effective excuse me, and efficient. So there you go. I hope you took the challenge. I hope you'll take the challenge and make your own multiplicity image. That's how we do it. If you have any questions, give me a holler and have fun. Thanks.